Hello viewers, in today's video, we'll tell you about a mysterious city that once existed on a small island, but somehow vanished from sight. Even today, scientists have been unable to discover where it went or how it disappeared. So stay with us until the end of the video as we uncover this fascinating mystery. And if you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our upcoming amazing videos. Now, let's dive right into the story. In the late 16th century, off the coast of what is now North Carolina, an English colony was established with the dream of creating a new world. It was meant to be the first permanent English settlement in the Americas, a symbol of ambition, exploration, and national pride. What began as a hopeful venture quickly turned into one of the greatest mysteries in American history: the disappearance of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. To this day, more than 400 years later, historians, archaeologists, and curious minds are still asking the same question: what really happened to the colonists of Roanoke? The story begins in 1584 when Sir Walter Raleigh, an English explorer and favorite of Queen Elizabeth I, received permission to establish a colony in the New World. The mission was simple: claim land for England, find riches, and establish a base to challenge the growing power of Spain. Raleigh never actually set foot in America himself, but he sent expeditions to scout potential sites. The explorers found Roanoke Island, a fertile piece of land between the mainland and the Atlantic Ocean, and they believed it would be perfect for settlement. It was peaceful, filled with forests, wildlife, and resources, or so it seemed. In 1585, the first English settlers arrived at Roanoke. About 100 men under the command of Sir Richard Grenville and Ralph Lane set up camp. What they didn't anticipate was the difficulty of surviving in a land so far from home. Food became scarce, supplies ran low, and tensions quickly rose between the colonists and the local Native American tribes. Lane's men were accused of stealing food from the native population, and soon violence broke out. After several bloody skirmishes, the fragile relationship between the English and the indigenous people collapsed completely. When Sir Francis Drake stopped by Roanoke in 1586, on his way back to England, the desperate colonists begged to be taken home, and so the first attempt at colonization ended in failure. Yet, despite the disaster, Raleigh was determined not to give up. 2 years later, in 1587, he organized another expedition, this time with families instead of soldiers. The new group, led by Governor John White, included men, women, and children to 115 settlers in total, all hoping to build a permanent English community in the New World. Among them was White's own daughter, Eleanor Dare, who would later give birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born on American soil. The birth of Virginia was seen as a sign of hope that this time the colony would truly take root. But almost immediately, the colonists faced the same struggles as before. They arrived too late in the season to plant crops, and their relationship with nearby tribes remained strained. Within weeks, they realized they were running dangerously low on supplies. The colonists begged John White to return to England to gather more resources and help. It was a difficult decision. White agreed, leaving behind his family, including his newborn granddaughter, with the promise that he would return as soon as possible. When John White sailed back to England in late 1587, he had no idea how long he would actually be gone. War had erupted between England and Spain, and Queen Elizabeth had ordered every available ship to defend the homeland from the Spanish Armada. White's requests to return to Roanoke were repeatedly denied. Years passed, and he could do nothing but wait, tormented by worrying and guilt. Finally, in 1590, 3 long years after he had left, White managed to secure passage back across the Atlantic. He arrived at Roanoke Island on August 18, 1590, his granddaughter Virginia's 3rd birthday. When White and his crew reached the island, they were met with an eerie silence. The settlement was deserted, houses had been dismantled, fences taken down, and no sign of life remained. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, and no obvious evidence of an attack. It was as though the colonists had simply vanished. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post: CROATOAN. Another carving on a tree nearby, read only Crow. White immediately recognized the word. It referred to a nearby island, home to a friendly tribe led by Chief Manteo, who had once helped the English. White took this as a hopeful sign. He believed his people had relocated to CROATOAN Island, perhaps seeking safety. But before he could search for them, a violent storm hit, damaging the ships and forcing the crew to retreat. White pleaded with the sailors to return to CROATOAN once the storm passed, but they refused. Out of supplies and with their ship in danger, they sailed back to England, leaving the mystery unsolved. White never saw his family again. He died without knowing the fate of his daughter, his granddaughter, or the colony he had fought so hard to protect. And thus began one of the oldest unsolved mysteries in American history. Over the centuries, countless theories have emerged. Some believe the colonists did indeed move to CROATOAN Island, now known as Hatteras Island, and assimilated with the local tribes. Archaeological evidence has shown that European tools and artifacts were later found in the region, suggesting some level of contact between the English and Native Americans. Perhaps the colonists intermarried, adopted native customs, and simply became part of the indigenous community, their English identity slowly fading over generations. Others propose darker explanations. Some historians argue that the colonists may have tried to sail back to England themselves, only to perish at sea. Another theory suggests that they were attacked by hostile tribes or even the Spanish, who had settlements to the south and might have seen the English as a threat. There are also more mysterious theories, tales of disease, famine, or even supernatural forces, though these lean more toward legend than fact. For centuries, CROATOAN has been a word that fuels endless speculation. It appears again and again in American folklore and pop culture, carved as a symbol of something lost, something unexplained. Edgar Allan Poe supposedly muttered the word CROATOAN before his death. It's appeared in books, movies, and television shows, always tied to disappearances and the unknown. The power of the mystery lies not only in what happened, but in what we'll never truly know. In recent decades, archaeologists have returned to Roanoke and nearby islands, armed with modern technology, ground-penetrating radar, advanced dating tools, and detailed mapping systems. Some of the findings have reignited old debates. At a site called Site X, inland from Roanoke, excavations have uncovered fragments of English pottery dating to the late 1500s, possibly belonging to the missing colonists. Another dig at Hatteras Island found similar artifacts, copper rings, sword handles, and glass beads consistent with English origin. These discoveries suggest that at least some members of the colony may have survived and relocated. Still, no definitive proof has been found. What makes the lost colony of Roanoke so enduring is that it's more than just a historical puzzle. It's a mirror of human hope and failure. The colonists came seeking a new beginning, chasing the dream of building a better world. They were brave, ambitious, and desperate to succeed. But they were also human, vulnerable to hunger, disease, and fear. They stepped into a vast and unfamiliar world, far from the safety of home, and vanished into history's shadows. Some historians see Roanoke as a lesson in the arrogance of empire, an example of how dreams of conquest can blind us to the realities of survival. Others see it as a story of resilience. Perhaps the colonists did survive, adapt, and live on through generations of native descendants. Either way, the Lost Colony has become an American legend, a story of disappearance that reminds us how fragile beginnings can be. Every year, thousands of people visit Roanoke Island, now part of North Carolina's Outer Banks, to walk the same ground where John White's colony once stood. There's a sense of reverence and curiosity in the air, a feeling that the land itself might still hold the answer. The island has been turned into a historical site, complete with museums and a long-running outdoor play that reenacts the story of the colonists. But even with all the research, the myths, and the artifacts, the truth remains elusive. Perhaps that's what makes the story so compelling. The Lost Colony of Roanoke isn't just about missing settlers. It's about the unknown. It's about how much we crave answers, how much we fear being forgotten, and how every mystery says something about us. It reminds us that history isn't always written in ink. Sometimes it's carved into wood, left behind as a single word that echoes through time. CROATOAN. And so, the legend of Roanoke lives on, haunting, fascinating, and unsolved. Whether the colonists perished, adapted, or thrived in secrecy, they left behind a legacy of wonder that continues to capture our imagination. The Lost Colony may never reveal its secrets, but its story ensures that those first brave